The chalk snapped in half the moment the equation hit the board, a sharp crack that echoed through the lecture hall like a warning shot. Symbols spilled across the green surface in violent, tangled lines, nested integrals, abstract operators, a structure so dense it looked more like a threat than a problem. The professor's hand lingered in the air, almost trembling with satisfaction, while at the back of the room a young black student froze, his notebook still open to a half-finished page. The air felt heavier now, charged with something ugly and electric, because everyone understood what this was meant to be. Not a lesson, not a challenge, a spectacle, a public breaking. If you believe every story hides a lesson, take a second right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Humanity Stories, because what happens next might change the way you see people forever. The student had learned early how to disappear without leaving his seat. He kept his shoulders curved inward, eyes lowered, movements economical, as if taking up less space might make him invisible. He was used to the sideways looks, the quiet assumptions that followed him like a shadow through whiteboards and hallways. He had grown up in a small apartment where numbers were the only things that made sense when the world outside didn't. While other kids slept, he traced patterns in the margins of old textbooks, teaching himself the language of infinity and proof, finding comfort in the certainty that equations, at least, never lied about what they were. But none of that mattered here. Here, he was just another body in a seat the professor clearly believed did not belong. The lecture hall hummed with suppressed anticipation. Pens stopped moving. A few students leaned back, already distancing themselves from the embarrassment they expected to witness. The professor's posture radiated confidence, the kind that comes from believing the outcome is predetermined. This equation had history. It was notorious, whispered about in academic circles as a theoretical wall, solvable in principle, yes, but only after years of specialization. It wasn't meant for students. It was meant to remind them of their place. And now it hung there, massive and merciless, offered up like a dare aimed at one person alone. Something shifted inside the student then, not anger, not fear, but a quiet exhaustion. The familiar weight of being underestimated pressed down on him, but beneath it was something steadier, something patient. He looked at the equation the way a climber looks at a mountain, not denying its size, not mocking the danger, but recognizing the path hidden within the rock. His hand moved before his mind could second-guess it. He stood. The scrape of his chair sounded far too loud. A few heads turned, surprised, some amused. He walked to the board carrying nothing but a piece of chalk, his heart pounding not with nerves, but with memory, late nights, flickering lights, pages filled and refilled until patterns emerged where chaos once lived. He didn't rush. Each symbol he wrote felt deliberate, almost reverent, as if he were uncovering something that had always been there. The room, once restless, grew still. Lines transformed. What had looked impossible began to breathe, to bend, to reveal symmetry hidden deep within its structure. The chalk moved steadily, confidently, dust gathering on his fingers like evidence of something undeniable. Even those who didn't understand the mathematics could feel it, the shift from mockery to disbelief, from certainty to unease. The professor's expression changed slowly, like a crack spreading through glass, arrogance giving way to confusion, then to a dawning, terrifying recognition. Time seemed to stretch as the final transformation appeared on the board. Clean and elegant, the equation resolved not with brute force but with insight. It was beautiful in a way only truth can be. The student stepped back, breathing hard now, his chest rising and falling as if he'd surfaced from deep water. The silence was no longer hostile. It was stunned, heavy, sacred. The professor stared at the board as though it had betrayed him, as though the world had quietly rearranged itself without asking permission. Years of assumptions collapsed in that moment, not loudly, not dramatically, but completely. Just before the ending, pause and tell me this, what were you feeling right now? Drop it in the comments. The student returned to his seat without looking around, without seeking approval. He had not stood to prove anything to them. He had stood because the equation had asked him a question, and he knew the answer. The professor never apologized out loud. Some regrets are too big for words. But the room remembered. And so did the students who watched their certainty dissolve, replaced by something far more uncomfortable and far more necessary. If this story stirred something in you, if it made you angry, hopeful, quiet, or reflective, engage with it. Like, comment, share. Let that feeling exist outside of you for a moment. Because sometimes the most powerful equations aren't written on boards at all, they're written into the way we finally learn to see one another.